Welcome to Oracle Service Cloud Tips and Tricks with CPI. My name is Derek, and I'm going to share some tips and tricks for reporting through Oracle Service Cloud. So let's go ahead and get started here. Let me get Oracle Service Cloud up and running. So the first thing that I want to show you guys is something that I came across the other day. So what I was trying to do was I was actually trying to show a product ID. So, what I typically do with a product ID is I might say, incidents product ID or prod ID, right? And what typically will show up is this, right? And so this is the normal product ID, but what I actually needed to call out were the actual numbers for the product ID. And so what I found is that if you actually take the same expression, but what you're going to do is you're actually going to say incidents, we're going to say products, and this actually will work for the actual product table as well. So if you add a .id at the end of it, what it will now show, I actually need to add a product ID. So what it's now going to show is it's actually going to show a numeric value. It will tell me the actual product ID, as in the database product ID, which is kind of handy. So this will work for contacts, and as I mentioned, this will work also for the incident table product reference, the product table product reference. So something I thought that would be kind of handy for everybody to know. Now, the second example that I want to show you guys, or the second tip I should say, is sometimes there are some things that you might want to count. And far too often what ends up happening is that you might actually do a count for generic things. So we'll just say count and incidents .refno, right? So a pretty basic count formula where what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the number of incidents. But what we may find is that instead of getting this full number, which is actually just going to give us a total count of all the incidents that we have, what we may want to do is we may actually want to add some conditions. So in order to do that, you're not going to be able, well, I guess if you wanted to, you could filter this, but another way to actually approach this is to say count, or actually, sorry, you're going to say sum, and we're going to say incidents dot status, and we'll say status ID. So let's say that the expression that we actually want to call out is if the status is new, right? So we'll say, and on our system, the new status is that it's a status number 1. So here we're going to actually say, so if the status is equal to number 1, then what we're going to do is we're actually going to give it a value of 1, and then if it's false, we'll give it a value of 0. Now, what this is now going to do is that this is actually going to give us the number of incidents that are new. We'll go ahead and say yes. Oh, sorry, I missed a quotation mark. There we go. Okay, so you'll see when I actually run the report now, that here we actually have a number of incidents, but over here, we're actually pre-filtering it. So it's essentially giving us a count it if it fulfills this criteria. All right, the last example that I want to show you guys, this is probably the most complicated example that I have to show you guys today in terms of a tip. But this, once again, also came up, when I was actually doing some work here. And the idea is that whenever you're looking at a report, sometimes you may actually want to change the values, right? Change the values that are actually in there. You may have set it up so that your contact center understands it, but maybe when you report out to, say, leadership, they may not necessarily understand it in the way that you need them to. So typically what you have is you might have your definition where it just calls the data field itself and you're just getting whatever values exist in the system. That's perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But, there's some times where you might want to swap the values out. So many people actually go with an if statement, right? So essentially what we're saying is that if the status is equal to whatever it is, and here we're saying if it's status ID 1, then replace it with this value, so on and so forth. And if that's false, then go to the next if statement. So it's a series of nested if statements. That's perfectly okay. And if that works for you, great. But I wanted to show you guys a little bit of a trick in Service Cloud that actually allows you to use the decode function to do something very similar. So here we have 5 different values, and if it equals any one of these 5 values, we're going to replace it with a unique label. So we're going to do the same function actually over here, where we can see that in the decode function, we're actually calling out that if it's this status, or if it's the status, and if it equals 1, replace it with this value. If it equals this ID, replace with this value, so on and so forth down the line until we actually get to the default. And the one thing that you'll notice, I mean, this certainly looks different, but it's a lot simpler because you're not really nesting a number of different if statements. What you're doing, in fact, is you're actually putting them all together into a single decode statement, hopefully simplifying. So in this example, there's only 5 different choices, but if you have more than 5, let's say 50, it certainly will simplify itself. So, what you'll notice is, all the values are the same, but, we got to it in a different way. So it's just something that I just wanted to share with you guys in terms of providing you guys just a slightly different viewpoint on exactly what it does. So with that said, if you guys have any creative or interesting reporting tricks, please share in the comments down below. But certainly, if you want to learn more about CPI, please visit us at CPI.Solutions. Till next time, thanks. Bye.